time for Live Well right here on The Move. Everyone is looking for a way to relieve their stress, especially since many people report an increase in their stress levels since the advent of the COVID pandemic. And we know, there's a lot of things. If you're an adult in this life, there's, your work, there's money that you need, there's, your family, there's your children, and this and that and the other. We're all dealing with so much. But one growing, but rather not new trend in stress relief involves taking something called adaptogens. And these are herbs or plants thought to neutralize the effects of stress on the body. And the claim is that these adaptogens reduce our body's reaction to stress and help us adapt to stressors better. But do they really? Well, we're getting the lowdown on these adaptogens this morning, especially because I've been seeing a lot of people speaking about one particular adaptogen known as ashwagandha. We're finding out a little bit more about these with Professor Ben-Erik van Wyk, Professor of Indigenous Botany and Traditional African Medicine at the University of Johannesburg. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Professor van Wyk. How are you?
Good morning. No, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, a lot of people might not have heard the term adaptogen, might be a new term for many to hear, but maybe some of us have heard a little bit about these medicines. I've been quite intrigued by one that's been making waves even on social media known as ashwagandha. And I'm like, what is this ashwagandha? So maybe you can explain to us better. What are adaptogens?
Yes, the idea of adaptogens is actually of Russian origin. So in 1947, a Russian researcher tested some chemicals on animals, and he found that these chemicals improve the resistance of the animals to stresses like cold and heat and so on. And so the idea developed that an adaptogen is something that heats you up when you're too cold, or it reduces your tension if you are if you have a high anxiety and so on. In other words, it modifies the body to create harmony by upregulating or down-regulating depending on the need of that specific individual. So that's the adaptogen. People also have many other terms for these types of products. They often called tonics or rubberants, or there's a whole range of immune stimulants, you name it. But basically the idea of the adaptogen is this return to balance.
I see. And I mean, it's in the name, isn't it, to adapt? But there's so many other ways that we have been adapting as human beings before the rise of these adaptogens. We do say that it's not something new. Is it something that a lot of people have been using, perhaps without it being mainstream?
Yes. Many of these things have a long history. Ancient history. I mean, ashwagandha has been used in India for probably thousands of years.
Wow.
So it's not a new idea. Plants have been used all over the world. You have in every culture some of these adaptogens or tonics. And so what I think the only thing that is new is that it is now commercialized. So it's no longer used within the boundaries of tradition. It is now actually available as over-the-counter products. And therein also lies some sort of a danger, because there are many unscrupulous people who wants to make a quick buck and wants to make money out of this. And so one has to be careful what you buy, because not so much that it's dangerous, but because you can be misled by people who, create products that do not contain any active ingredients. And they do that because if there's no activity, then it's absolutely safe. But then, of course, and such people also give traditional medicine a bad name. If the product does not work, we know that almost any product will work if you believe it works. That is called the placebo effect.
Correct, yes.
If you don't believe in the medicine, it won't work for you. That's an old saying. And so part of the activity of these products is actually the placebo effect. And that placebo effect can be enhanced in various ways. For example, if you drink a tonic that has alcohol in it, the alcohol makes you feel somewhat better. And then you have the reaction of saying, it's working, because I'm feeling better. Or they add a little bit of laxative in it. So then you run to the toilet and you say, this medicine is working. Look, I can see something is happening here. And those are all the old tricks to make people believe in the medicine, believe in the healer, and therefore it is often then, quite effective, actually, even if there's not much in it.
So the one thing Professor, the one thing that's been really praised about these adaptogens that people are taking is what I hear them saying, it's natural. So is it really natural? I mean, people are going into the stores, the pharmacies and getting these medications just over the counter, easily gettable. Are these natural ways of stress relief?
Yes, it should be, and it mostly is. So you have, it's often plant-based. It's practically only plant-based, and it often contains various well-known adaptogenic plants or plants with a history of use as adaptogens. So, for example, in the Zulu culture, you have the imbiza. Now the imbiza, it actually refers to the cooking pot, right? Imbiza is a cooking pot. So what people did former times, traditionally, is they put all sorts of mixtures of herbs that through the ages proved to be valuable. So the imbiza is actually a mixture, what we call a decoction. You boil the herbs in a pot and then you drink it. And by adding all these different plants together, you have different chemical compounds in the mixture. So the one chemical compound may reduce your stress levels. The other one may have an immune boosting effect. And the other one could be anti-inflammatory. And the other one could be slightly laxative. And the other one could have alkaloids or nitrogen compounds that make you feel better. So you can see it's a mixture. And so the adaptogenic plants, the traditional adaptogens, typically have a lot of different chemical compounds in one plant. So, for example, in the Sotho culture, you have the concept of musapelo. Musapelo is the herbs that are used to reduce stress and to reduce bereavement. It's typically given to people, who have lost a relative.
I see.
And so those plants reduce stress. And the way it is doing it, because most of these plants are legumes, pea flower plants, and they have alkaloids, and those alkaloids work on the mind typically, and so it makes you feel better.
All right,
and
Professor.
It reduces
we need to take a short break. I think this is really interesting, especially because you're making the connection outside of the pharmacy, outside of the convenience store, back into, our own context as African people, that these things have always existed. Like you've mentioned, imbiza by the Zulu people and musapelo by the Sotho or Setswana people. And I'm sure, as you've spoken, ashwagandha with the native Indians and many other parts of the world that have been using adaptogens for history. But I want to also bring it into today's context and look at those over-the-counter things and whether or not, we actually do know how to deal with stress outside of using these adaptogens. I think is also really important. So stay with us on the line. We're speaking to Professor Ben-Erik van Wyk, Professor of Indigenous Botany and Traditional African Medicine at the University of Johannesburg, who's giving us the lowdown on adaptogens.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day. with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Today we're getting the ins and outs of adaptogens known to be stress relievers and neutralize the effects of stress on the body. Professor Ben-Erik van Wyk continues this conversation with us. He's the Professor of Indigenous Botany and Traditional African Medicine at the University of Johannesburg. Well, let's speak about that. You've given us a few examples of what adaptogens have always existed within our African societies and other Eastern societies as well. But let's speak about what's going on right now. There seems to have been really just maybe a trend of sorts to go towards adaptogens once again. There's a reason why many of us are hearing these terms like ashwagandha for the first time, and we're like, wow, now I'm hearing it more often. Now, as a young person in South Africa, I think I know at least 2 people personally that are using, herbs like ashwagandha. Is this a signal of something bigger? And is this really healthy to use something that's outside of your own body and outside of your natural stress relieving ways to try and, find that zen, that peace that we're looking for?
Yes, I think that there is a danger that you can be misled because there are many fake products on the market. And one way to find out is to Google the product. So before you buy something, just Google it and see what comes up, because very often there's no clinical evidence of efficacy. There's often people complaining about side effects and things like that. And you can see from the context that it is basically a money-making scheme. I think there are very few products that one can recommend with confidence that it should work. Even ashwagandha, I think in the traditional context where you have a healer who knows the patient and who knows what the patient requires, those healers should not be underestimated. They have profound insights into a person. They can look at you, look at your eyes, look at your posture, and they can immediately tell what is wrong with you. And then they can recommend something specifically that is good for you. I think a better strategy, if you suffer from stress and anxiety, is to simply have a healthier lifestyle. I think that is the first thing to give attention to.
Yeah.
It's like people who are obese and overweight. Now they drink all sorts of things to try and reduce weight. And there's only one very easy way to reduce weight, and that is to eat less.
Yeah.
And to reduce stress, the best thing to do is to get regular exercise, to eat a healthy diet, because very often those tonics actually are supplements that provides the body with better nutrition, and that obviously will also help you. So I think a healthy lifestyle is the best approach.
Yeah.
I would not. There's no magical cure for stress and anxiety. If you do have stress and anxiety, we have conventional anti-stress medicines like Valium, for example. Some people take a smoke, or some people have a glass of wine, and that makes them relax. They feel better. Traditionally in South Africa, we have a very interesting plant called Scalitium or Kanna, Kougoed. And this is a Khoisan traditional medicine that's now making tremendous news worldwide because of the stress relieving action that it has. It has an effect similar to smoking a cigarette, but it's not harmful, and it is not habit forming. So there's no physical or psychological dependency whatsoever. And that plant has a lot of potential. And if you can get good quality Scalitium, that's one thing that I can actually from personal experience, recommend as a stress reliever.
Nice. But when do you know when to stop? I think that's one thing, right? Because things that we use sometimes can end up being crutches in our lives where we feel like, yeah, this thing helps me relieve stress, but because I never want to feel stress again, I just keep on going. I'm talking about a tweet actually that I'm reading right now where someone says, taking ashwagandha has been a blessing for me. Too bad it's made me colder as a person than I already am. And someone else says, well, just wait until you go numb. I dropped 70 pounds on my foot at the gym one time when I was taking it and felt nothing. So it seems like prolonged sometimes use of these products can also have an adverse effect on your natural emotions, your natural feelings, and maybe a numbness towards life in general.
Yes, I think that is a general principle for all medicines. One should never use it chronically over long periods. Any herbal medicine should not be used for longer than, let's say, 7 days or 10 days, because there may be effects on the liver. You may have cumulative effects, cumulative toxic effects, and so on. So it is not safe to use herbal products over a long period. Sometimes these so-called supplements or whatever do not contain any harmful substances. They do not contain anything biologically active.
Yeah.
So they would, but any serious medicine has biological activity and therefore has potential to do harm in some way or another. And herbal medicines are not meant to be taken over long periods as a habit. Not correct.
So how would you recommend that someone who, wants to, get the benefits, the stress relieving benefits of various adaptogens? Of course, they've been told they're natural, so they're not like, other kinds of medicines. And they've also have a long history within our African traditional, cultures and traditions and spectrums. How would one who has found maybe an adaptogen that they think would be best for them to use, ashwagandha or anything else that we can name, how would you recommend they actually use it and over what period of time?
I think the first thing they should do is to find themselves a healthcare practitioner, be it a traditional doctor or a medical doctor, and discuss the issue with them and get advice, medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I cannot really recommend treatment. I have all the knowledge of the traditions, but I'm not a medical doctor. It would be irresponsible for me to make a recommendation because people differ. You never know if there's no proper diagnosis.
Right.
There may be a reason why you are stressful. There may be some underlying problem that you do not recognize. And then if you start, using something that won't help because there's some serious problem with you. So I would say always consult a healer or a doctor and ask them for advice and even show them the product that you intend to take. And maybe in collaboration with them, research the product a little bit, see who makes it, see if there are any clinical evidence that it can work or not work, or see if it's a scam. So often we find that it's a scam, and then you have many reports in the literature and online saying that people find no benefit.
Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that I'm sorry, we have to wrap it up there because we've run out of time, but I'm glad that you're leaving it there because, that recommendation to say you do still need to get medical or some sort of medical traditional advice before taking these things, even though because I see people recommending these things to each other all willy-nilly on social media. Hey, you've got stress. I tried ashwagandha. You should try it too. And people take that advice, so easily and go and take it. Meanwhile, they have underlying issues that need to be dealt with first. So I think it's the best place to leave it, to say, I will not recommend anything. You need to go to a professional and a healthcare professional or a traditional healthcare professional before you take on anything that you're going to be ingesting into your body. Thank you so much, Professor. This has been quite an insightful conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for letting me into your world.
It is a pleasure. That's
everyone.
Professor of Indigenous Botany and Traditional Medicine, African Medicine at the University of Johannesburg, Professor Ben-Erik van Wyk, speaking about adoptogens. So before you post and say, hey guys, you should try ashwagandha, don't do it. Go first to a healthcare professional.